So good to see all of you out there today. It really, really is on this beautiful, beautiful end that is weekend. Well, welcome, Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. I'm Worship Associate Celia Ortenberg, and I'm joined today by Worship Associate Jim Merrill to bring you a service featuring friends and members of our congregation as we celebrate Earth Day, as well as our own congregation's recognition in the California Green Business Certification Program through the city of Ventura. I do have a few announcements today. First, we ask that people without masks, and there are no people without masks in this section of the seats nearest the windows. If you don't have a mask, we would have you move over here because this section is reserved for people who are more comfortable sitting in around other people that are masked. So thank you always for your cooperation in doing that. Tonight at 6 o'clock, Kathleen Wheeler and Gary Zinnick are offering a culture talk, How We Build or Block Culture of Equity. They offered this in person last week, and it was really great. I enjoyed it. Tonight, they're going to be offering it via Zoom. So if you would like to attend, please contact Kathleen or Gary. We'd also like to invite you on Sunday, May 7th, immediately following the service, to join us for another community building potluck event. A $5 donation is asked, but no one will be turned away. Guests and children are free. The theme of this potluck is foods that began with C and P. I thought celery and peanut butter might be what I'll bring. I don't know, so don't bring that. Chili, pasta, anything you can think of just to make it fun. Get creative with your contributions to the buffet. And when you come, remember to be kind to the earth and bring your own place settings. And please contact Michael Axavan by the end of this week to let him know that you are coming and what you're going to be bringing. Last week I talked to him and he was really worried that he might have to cancel it because no one's contacted him. So please do that so that we can have it here. Anyway, and I also remind you once again that if you have a pledge card that you have been thinking of returning and have still been thinking of returning it or sending it in, you can simply place it in Jen's box, which is on top of the other boxes in the hallway there. And there are pledge cards on the desk, blank ones if you need one, so you can fill that out if you are so inclined. For any more information about any of these announcements or anything else that's going on in the church, please remember to refer to the weekly email messages UUCV this week. Oh, Jim reminds me that there's a website pledge card. Yes. I see it here. Thank you, Jim. If you go to the church website and you scroll to the bottom of the page, you can open up the website, the pledge card there, and you'll be able to get one there. Is that right? Get it? All right.
Well, good morning. I am Worship Associate Jim Merrill, wishing you a beautiful Sunday here in the sanctuary, and all of you folks out there in the interwebs, wherever you may be finding us. We invite those of you who are Zooming at home to light a chalice or a candle at home, as Celia lights the chalice of our free faith here in the sanctuary. For our opening words and call to worship, it's me, For today's call to worship, I have a confession to make. I did not take out the trash bin to the street this week, nor did I take out the recycling bin, nor the green waste bin. I didn't take them out last week either. But I'm not being lazy. I'm considering our household practices for those of us who have single-family dwellings in subtle ways that only recently dawned on me. On average, I discovered, and yes, I did time it, it takes a very large internal combustion engine vehicle 20 seconds to stop in front of my house, pick up a bin, put it back down, and move one house down to do the same thing again, all the way down the block. And then multiply that by 3 for our 3 bins. That's a lot of stops and starts. And accelerating, you know, is one of the least efficient things you can do with an automobile. But haven't I paid for those weekly services, damn it? Yet if my bin is only 20% full, what is the real payment in climate-changing combustion output from having a big truck pick up a bin that will probably take 2 more weeks to fill? Is that harmonious with living gently on our land? Later during our offering, you will hear about the importance of caring for our land in partnership with the descendants of indigenous individuals. Try saying that, toy boat. Who are caring for our land, and we work with them in partnership. Channel Islands Restoration, about which you will hear later, is going to be working with the Chumash people who have lived on this land that we inhabit since long before the arrival of Europeans. Such stewardship is so important. So may it continue to become with us. And I say continue to become. As the prophet says in Haggai 1:5, you're all familiar with it, consider your own ways. And that will be our theme as we hear from 4 members of our congregation or community about their own environment-related practices. We hope that as you listen to the practices of our friends and celebrate our congregational achievement, your spirit will be moved by your own ways and your imagination will be incited. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Carolyn Bjerke, the music director, and I want to welcome you all here in the sanctuary and online. Our opening hymn today is Morning Has Broken, and we're going to be using that hymn woven through the service too, kind of as a response to some of the speakers. So we'll be returning to that. But for now, please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them spring.
Well, I would be delighted to have our young people or people who are young at heart join me up here. We have a fun activity today. I am so glad you're here. Wow. That's an owl. What's that made of? What do you think? What is that made of? You guys know? Did you say trash? It's made of trash, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's made of trash and things that people just, this was made by students in Portugal. And you can see how big that was. It was like 3 stories high. It is really cool. And they say that owls are really, really wise. And so I'm thinking that this owl might remind us to be wise about trying to have the least trash that we can have and taking care of our world. So today I have a kind of a game, and I need you guys to come and help me. Can you do that? Okay, come on. What I'm going to have you do, I've got lots of stuff. This is a cool bag. I got this a present in this, and so I get to reuse it for whatever I want to reuse it. Who wants to go first to reach in and pick something out? I can see you want to go first. Okay, reach in. You'll go next and pick some. Okay. Oh my goodness. Do you know what this is?
A container.
So what? A container? It is a container. This is a container that I get when I order food that goes out, or rather that I pick up, all right? So I get this all the time, and there's all this plastic. So you know what I do with these containers?
This is not a container.
That's the lid of the container, yeah. I just, I put stuff in them. I use them as containers. I put extra leftovers that I make. I put lots of food. They stack really well. They're just wonderful to have around the house. And I didn't have to buy anything else for that. Okay? All right. You want to pick something? What are you going to get in there? Ah. Yeah, what's in those? Oh, that's right. Those are just buttons. Sometimes I take the buttons off shirts or things that I have before I throw them away if they're old. But
What kind of buttons are these?
those are buttons that were on a jacket a long time ago that I had, and I might want to have one of those buttons sometimes.
What kind of buttons is this?
That's another big button. Okay, let's put the buttons back. Can you put the top back on? There you go. And this is just like a jelly jar that I got that is my button container. So somebody actually made me some wonderful applesauce, I think it was, and I just keep the jar and I get to put things in it. I can put lots of things in there. Okay. You want to choose another one?
I want to choose another one too.
Ah, what are those? Do you know what this is? What's that?
That's a napkin.
That's a napkin. That's right. And so here, what are these napkins made out of? What are these napkins made out of?
Made out of paper.
They're made out of paper. And what's this napkin made out of?
Nothing.
It's made out of cloth. And so which one do you think I'd have to just throw away when I finished using it, and which one could I use again and again and again? Which one? This one, the cloth napkin, that's right. And you know what? I'm going to tell you a secret. That is that I made this napkin out of some fabric that I used to have decorating my house. When I took that down, I just used it to make napkins with. But cloth napkins, you can just keep using again and again. They're cool. All right, so your turn. Ah, what's that? So which one of these, see you can,
This is a dirty thing.
Yeah, it's a dirty sandwich bag, isn't it? Yeah. Which one of these do you have to throw away because it gets dirty? And which ones could you use again? This one, so which one's better for the planet? That one, huh? Yeah, okay. And it looks like you could also use it as a puppet, right?
Also a glove.
Okay, all right.
Also a glove.
Also a glove, that's right. Okay, you guys are good. All right, let's see. We've got a few more things in here. Whose turn is it? Wait a minute, wait. I think it's your brother's turn. Gotta take turns, that's hard. Oh, these! All right. So
This is good for the earth.
those are good for the earth, right?
This is not.
This is not. You got it. Okay. And what would you do with these things?
Throw them.
When you
That one, throw them away, and we use it all the time.
You throw this one away, you reuse this one, and you can get these at the grocery store when you're getting your fruits and vegetables and you want to keep them all together, but you would just throw them away. So if you have these and you take them all the time, you can just wash them out and use them again, and there's not so much plastic. All right. Something else? All right, now it's your turn, right? Okay, what can you find in there? What's that?
Handle.
What is it?
Why did you break this wall?
This is wait a minute, your brother can tell us what it is. What is it?
A doorknob.
It's a doorknob, that's
Why
right.
did you break this wall?
Well, it came off of a door that wasn't working very well. So what can this tell us about how to save our planet? That's a hard one, isn't it? Any ideas? Okay, this is to remind us, and you guys can do this, to close your doors. Like if it's hot outside, if you have air conditioning, I don't have air conditioning, but if I did, I'd close the door to keep it cool inside. And in the wintertime, when it's warm inside, I'd keep the doors closed so that the cold air wouldn't come in. Are there other doors you could close to keep the environment healthy? Okay, maybe some the refrigerator door. Oh, what is that? All right, I got this from my friend Jim Merrill here. What is it?
He says it's
It's a light switch. You're right. Pardon?
he just has a mask.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. It's but no one can hear me. It's a light switch. Well, how is the light switch going to help our environment? Don't know? Well, every time you turn off the light switch, you're not using so much electricity. So if you're not using a light in a room, if you turn the switch off, you're saving electricity. If you're watching TV and then you stop watching it, maybe you go for dinner or something, should you keep it on or turn it off? Turn it off, yeah. Okay, good. That's pretty cool, isn't it? All right, I think we have
One more.
just one more. Whose turn is it? Who knows? Is it your turn? Alrighty. Can you get that? What's that?
This door.
What?
This door.
Is that what, sweetie? I didn't hear you.
I can't open it.
Yeah, that's right. That's okay. I get this from the dentist. What is it?
A toothbrush.
Toothbrush. What does that have to do with saving our world? Who knows? That's weird, isn't it? All right, when you brush your teeth, do you let the water keep running while you brush your teeth, or do you turn it off? Turn it off, that's right. So don't let the water keep running when you're brushing your teeth, because you're wasting, what?
Water.
Water, that's right, you're wasting water, absolutely. And what other things can you turn the water off while you're doing? Do you have any ideas? Maybe when you're washing your hands, if you wash it and sing the alphabet like they were telling us to do a while ago, you could turn the water off and then turn it on when you wash them again. All sorts of things like that. Okay. All right. Excellent. You guys did a great job, but my last one, I brought this just because I think it's kind of cool. And I want you to tell me what these things are. This last idea is to be creative, okay? If you can't throw or if you have things that you might throw away, be creative. What are those things? Do you know what those are? These are chopsticks.
Do they go out?
Yeah, they do. They do go out. Let me do it. Okay, you want to pull it out? There you are. These are chopsticks that become a basket, and some wonderful creative artist took the chopsticks from Asian restaurants, and they sanitized them and dyed them and made this beautiful basket, which is really cool. And there are lots of different ways you can be creative with things that you really can't throw away. For instance, our friend Cassie Tondro, who has done all of the new artwork, the back splash or the back hanging over there, she makes those all with leftover paint that somebody has discarded or given away for people to use because they've used enough, they've got paint left over. So her called Conscience, and she uses leftover paint. She uses a lot of environmental things to make beautiful artwork. So you can try to be creative if you can't, or if you have to throw something away and you can't use something else for it. Okay, was that fun? It was sure fun having you guys here. It really, really was. I'm so glad when I saw you walk in today, I thought, yes, they're here. Yay. Okay, why don't we all rise, and if you would like to, turn and form a bridge of love for these wonderful people to go out.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
Good morning.
Have you found a church family yet? After Mark and I moved to Northeast Florida, this was one of the first questions we got from the locals once they found out we were recent transplants. Now, I grew up in a Lutheran church, but I had no idea what a church family was. Church was just something we did on Sundays. But figuring we should have an answer for this constant question, we found a local UU church, and we learned what a church family was. That congregation kept us from absolutely hating our time in the Southern Bible Belt. So upon moving back to Southern California, why did we feel the need to find another church family? After all, we don't need the support of other religious liberals here like we did in the South. We have actual family that live here also. Why not just sleep in on Sundays? Part of it is now for our now 13-year-old son. We wanted a place for him to have the support of religious education, our whole lives sexuality education, as well as a space to learn about Unitarian Universalism. The other is for community, but not just for us as individuals. In Florida, we realized how important it is to work together to make a positive impact on the greater community. We need our greater community, and they need us. One example of our community support is that we give away our entire plate collection every single Sunday. I cannot stress how huge that is. UUCV is the only church we've been to that makes that commitment every single week. Because of this, the Finance Committee can't count on plate donations for the financial support of the church. It takes time, talent, and yes, treasure to keep this community going. People can be distrustful of churches asking for pledges, and in some cases, rightly so. But no one here is going to tell you that you're going to go to hell if you don't turn in your pledge cards. I'm not even sure I could say that with a straight face. But I am going to kind of say that. My personal belief is that we create our own heaven and hell here on earth. Yes, pledges go to decidedly unsexy things like paying the electricity bill and paving our parking lot. Even churches have to do adulting. But those things also help support the heart of this church. For our family, it is the RE program, our many and varied social action programs, as well as a safe space to explore our personal theologies. By financially supporting UUCV, my family and I are helping to build heaven here and now. Please join us in supporting what you love about this church by turning in your pledge cards also. Thank you.
Very much, Gina. You did a lot of work for those of us who are going to have to make follow-up calls. Well, as Gina reminded us, each Sunday this congregation does give away our collection to an organization in the larger community or to funds that help people in our own church. Those at home have two ways to give, through a link posted in the chat or by texting from your phone at 844-901-1779. Folks who are present in the sanctuary can text to give, or you can still write a check, or give cash, and then drop it in the basket at the rear of the sanctuary after the service. I now invite Channel Islands Restoration employee Erin Merrill to come forward and speak about this Sunday's recipient.
Our offering today goes to Channel Islands Restoration, which works to restore habitat on the Channel Islands and anywhere on the mainland that you can see the Channel Islands from, basically. Through invasive plant management, native plant propagation, and native plant installation. We also promote environmental education on the Central Coast through lectures, service trips, and habitat restoration volunteer opportunities. Recently, some of the things Channel Islands Restoration has done, we have used sheep to reduce the fuel load of invasive annual grasses, which grow fast and then dry up and leave a lot of fuel behind, and promote the growth of deep-rooted, green late in the season native grasses at the San Marcos Foothills Preserve. One current effort is the design, funding, installation, and maintenance of a Chumash ethnobotanical garden with the cooperation and consultation of various local members of the Barbareño Chumash group. In the first phase, we are planting native purple needlegrass, which is one of those deep-rooted plants, in the garden area with other native plants, working together to make a stronger community and restore the Marcos Foothills. We are also doing things like trail restoration to keep big old thistles from getting you when you walk by, and pulling out all kinds of invasive plants. We've also been restoring the trails to make them more resilient to giant rainstorms and more accessible to the members of the public, and keep people away from ground nesting birds that try to nest in the grasses. Thank you for giving generously, as you always do, to support this important work.
My blood doth rise in the winds of yon oak, her sap run deep in my veins, boundless my soul like the open sky where the stars forever have lain, where the love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sea. Beating my song is the wind of my breast, where the love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new, new dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to show a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
Grateful for the generosity of this congregation, which weaves a tapestry of love with its generosity that we call community.
Always losing these. Now is the time in our service when we hold up the great joys and sorrows that grace our lives. We place stones in the water for both the celebrations and the sorrows in our hearts, making ripples that are felt throughout our community. You can submit a joy or a sorrow via a link on the website uuventura.org or a link in our Thursday email bulletin, UUCV This Week. Those received by 10 o'clock on Saturday night will be shared the next morning. I invite you now to speak into the gathered community or write into the Zoom chat the names of those you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those who are in the need of the loving care of this beloved community. Please feel free to continue to add to the chat even after the silent pause has ended. Jim will now place one final stone in the water for all the joys and sorrows, yet unspoken, in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
This morning, we will hear from members of our congregational family who will share with us how they make sustainability-conscious decisions part of their ways in their everyday lives. Mark Mendelsohn, our very own National Park Service Ranger who has his own Smokey Bear hat. Todd Collart, a member of Citizens Climate Lobby. Maravilla Clemens, who grew up in this church since her mother, Maureen Daly, brought her here at the age of 5, and committed conservationist George Naugles. We begin with a live report from the field by National Park Ranger Mark Mendelsohn.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, friends. As Jim mentioned, I am Mark Mendelsohn. I am a proud member of this Green Sanctuary Church and a biologist for the National Park Service at the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. And I see my work as contributing to our society's understanding of nature and how we can better play on and manage, all while protecting the biodiversity and beauty of our natural lands. For in the end, we will only conserve what we love. We will only love what we, well, I just swallowed a fly. That tells you I'm in the field. We will only love what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. That wonderful quote is a favorite of mine from Baba Diom, a Senegalese forestry engineer. What I do, though, it's not all a selfless pursuit. I do get tremendous personal enjoyment and peace from working so close to the land as I am right now, sifting through the plants, listening to the birds. I don't know if you can hear them in the background. I'll be quiet in a moment. And maybe catching a glimpse of a scurrying wood rat. A couple fence lizards just came and joined the service a moment ago. They were very interested in Aaron's words earlier. And I wanted to share with you a few favorite plants around me and why they're important. So I'm going to turn my camera around now. Bear with me here. Okay, here we are in the beautiful Santa Monica Mountains. I'm in Thousand Oaks, a little south of Thousand Oaks. And this right in front of me is yucca, or Our Lord's candle, right? With these sharp, needle-pointed, long leaves. This was a very important plant for Chumash and Tongva Native Americans for basket weaving and such. Over here to, how about black sage? Let me get the lighting right. There's a nice flowering black sage. It's an important plant used for cooking and teas and various ailments. Just a lovely, very good smelling member of our plant community. And then how about chamise? This plant right here, this one's actually in the rose family. But this one is just a tremendous habitat source for so many other plants and animals. And it just blankets our chaparral covered hillsides. Let's go down and get a little bit micro here. How about, well, look at all this lichen growing on the base of this sage. So cool. This lichen, which you may know is an association between fungus and algae, actually. Pretty amazing. And then how about this little cutie? This little yellow, let me hold it up close here so it can focus. Well, hopefully you can make that out. That's a little member of the primrose family. And how about Hunger Games fans out there? Katniss Everdeen's younger sister, Prim, named after this very flower. Well, there are a lot of other things I could share with you, but I don't want to take up too much. California chicory. And just so many more things you could observe out there. But let me get back to some other words I wanted to share. I wanted to leave you with this prayer for plants, which are at the foundation of so much of life, wildlife, marine life, our lives. And this one is by Rosario Murillo, a Nicaraguan politician and poet. And she wrote, I'm going to plant a heart in the earth, water it with love from a vein. I'm going to praise it with the push of muscle and care for it in the sound of all dimensions. I'm going to leave a heart in the earth so it may grow and flower. A heart that throbs with longing, that adores everything green, that will be strength and nourishment for birds, that will be the sap of plants and mountains. So thank you for letting me share the beautiful Santa Monica Mountains with you this morning. And I encourage each of you to find and foster your own connection with the earth. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Todd Collart. I don't have any props to point to, little flowers to try to strain your vision to see. Looking out amongst the audience, I can tell many of you were here in 1970 for the Earth Day, first one. I was a senior in college at that time, and what we did to celebrate was bury an engine, a car engine, probably instead of a small little one for the dramatic effect of that. And while it was dubiously, appropriate to do from an environmental standpoint, it was a powerful message. And at that time, Earth Day was really about addressing the recent 1969 oil spill in Santa Barbara in the Channel and the damage it did. We're also concerned about air pollution, and being in Riverside in college, air pollution was a very visible and a tangible thing. You can see this brown wave coming out the corridor, Highway 10 corridor, and you could see it by 11 o'clock. It had reached the campus, and we used to have a big C for California University up on a hill about a quarter mile from where I was living. And if you couldn't look up on the mountain and see the big C, you know it was going to be a bad day, particularly if you couldn't see it as early as 9 in the morning. We're also concerned about pesticides such as DDT and cutting down old-growth redwoods. But climate change was not an issue, and today that's the issue for me, not so much the original Earth Day concerns. They're still there, but climate change is the issue for me. And today we're facing, you've heard numbers 1.5 Celsius, and remember Celsius is like 2 every Fahrenheit degree is a Celsius degree. So you say, 1.5 degrees, who's counting? It's just small margins, but in fact, those are big differences. And if you think about feeling well and not feeling well, sometimes that's just 1 Fahrenheit degree difference between having a temperature versus your normal operating temperature and how badly you feel. So if we're at 1.5 degrees, we're aiming to rise only that far from pre-industrial times, and God help us if we hit 2.0 degrees, because we'll have truly climate chaos at that point. To reach those degrees, it's estimated that we need to be cutting our greenhouse gas emissions by half by 2030. It's now 2023, 7 years away. Imagine cutting all of our emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, by half. And they have to be net zero by 2050 to avoid, again, the worst of climate actions. How many of you, raise your hands, how many think we can achieve those objectives? Oh, good. Well, I'm with the crowd who doesn't believe we're going to do it. So I'm taking the pessimist view, not gladly so. So my remarks are going to be kind of aimed at many of you out there who share that concern or that sentiment. And how do we deal with that? I've been asked many times, Todd, you're so damn pessimistic about this. I choose to think just realistic. And I think that, well, just tough to live with. One of the reasons for this is that if you've ever heard Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, talked about our challenges. It's not technical, it's not money, finances, it's our will to do what's tough, what's difficult. And I often analogize it to seeing a bathtub fill up and seeing it fill up and never bothering to reach for the faucets to turn off the water. And we in fact have that. We have a bathtub full of greenhouse gases that are overflowing, or about to, and we got people who are not even reaching for the faucet handles to turn it off. When they do reach for them, they're often turning them on. Further, case in point, the Biden administration just recently approved a huge new oil project up in Alaska. We've got the oil industry now going to court and suing, well, not suing, but suing a referendum in San Luis Obispo because that city had the audacity to ban further gas connections in new construction. So these are examples of the faucets being turned on further, more greenhouse gases being emitted. And you can think of your own examples, I'm sure. So the question is, how do I reconcile this? How do I manage to get through a day? And I come to a couple of conclusions that may be helpful to you, but they do guide some of my thinking. One of those is I figure I don't want to look back in 10 years or 5 years or some different time frame and see I didn't do enough or didn't do something. And you might ask yourself, could you ever do too much to try to resolve or address climate change? And I doubt you could answer yes, you could do too much. Too little is often what is attempted and meant to be satisfied with that. The other thing I've learned too, and very personally, is working with other climate activists. You don't want to desert your friends in the foxhole. We're all in a battle. And now with the Ukrainians fighting the Russians, it's kind of similarly situated in terms of outnumbered, outgunned in every kind of way. And you don't want to desert your comrades, and that's one of the reasons that keeps me going. I guess luckily I'll be dead when the worst of it hits if my predictions come through, so I take comfort in that. I'm not at all happy for my daughter, who's just now in mid-30s, so forth. But on a happier note, I do try to not dwell on the worst of conditions, but looking for happy things going on. One of those recently was UCLA demonstrated a very interesting project where, like bank robbers, they go to the source of the most carbon dioxide, which is in the ocean. I think it's 7 times more carbon dioxide by volume in the ocean than in the air. So rather than trying to suck carbon dioxide out of the air, they went to the ocean and using electrolysis, electric current through the water, managed to pull out large amounts of carbon dioxide, which they then solidify into, I'll call it limestone, for which they claim, I'm not sure why this is, they can put back in the ocean and leave it there, basically sequestered. So those kind of positive things are at least buoying my concerns, and urge you to check in. There's lots of sites you can visit about the worst that can happen, but there's also sites exploring new and positive things that are going on that will help kind of get you through the darker times. Also, I've been reading some articles and actually books by authors who believe that as things get progressively worse, and they're not getting progressively better at this point, given all the storms we go through, flooding, tornadoes, on and on. He's saying that we're going to survive as a species because we're going to be doing things differently, more cooperatively, more communally. We're have more localized, independent economies, not those enmeshed in huge corporate systems. I think the last thing that I get through this with is anger. There's so many things to be angry about: lack of action, frivolous things that people do, and that kind of motivates me to do things. And you can do personal things, things at home or things more communally out in the public. And thankfully, Celia's wonderful examples. I have a garage that's between my house and the bins. And the baggies that have got too much peanut butter and jelly in them to clean them out and reuse in the kitchen, find my way into my garage where they keep coils of wire that would spring loose if I didn't have them bagged up, and other small items. The jars, the mason jars, get refilled with jam my wife makes. Any loose fabric around gets cut up, if not put into a quilt by my wife, gets cut up and made as filling for dog beds. And those pesky little containers you get your Chinese food with, for example, I've got nuts and bolts and files and all kinds of things stuffed in my garage with those. And my chopsticks. I've salvaged several chopsticks now that are used as probes, particularly when I'm dealing with electrical items. They don't conduct electricity like screwdrivers do. So even the doorknobs, I've saved doorknobs deliberately to use in a future art project of some sort. And I have probably way too much future art projects laying around at this point. I will say in my own defense, I did salvage a broken down one about 1.5 years ago, and I've now revived it, and it'll be reinstalled out in Publix at the end of this week, next week, I think. Among the other things we've done is, like many of you perhaps have taken electrical panels, solar-powered panels. We have an EV, electric vehicle. And in that regard, I think some of my observations about that is that I really enjoy driving my electric car. I'm a car guy. I love my old 60-year-old sports car, gasoline-powered. But the electric car is so much faster, more powerful. It's just amazing. So anybody afraid of driving a slow EV, that's not something you worry about. I'm also glad to volunteer readily, not to meet people someplace. We'll pick you up. We'll drive. No gas. I've also found that I'm really liking driving by a gas station where prices are $5 and $6 a gallon. I just grin when I do that. But I'm also finding I'm a bit chagrined to think about getting in my RV van, which is gas-powered, because there are no electric versions, and driving that. It just kind of gets to me. I'm so embedded with using the EV that doing the alternative is kind of troubling. Other things we've done is typical things around the house to make improvements, but I've coupled these with some other incentives. Rather than me climbing out my attic and dealing with sticky fiberglass installations, I hired a young friend to do that. It's much more agile, and he needed the work. So if you're contemplating doing something green around your house that may be just too tough or difficult or challenging, find a young person who needs a job and kill, not kill birds, but, you know, sorry, Mark. Sorry, Mark. But you might, you know, achieve two different objectives. We practice a shiver in place function. We don't turn on the heat. We've got a gas heater like many of us do. We just don't turn it on. And we often try to meet the objectives in terms of gas usage and water usage of just what's the minimum. Most of the bills are set up now to guarantee everybody gets at least a minimum amount, even if you can't afford it. You're subsidized. So if we can keep our usage down to those levels, that's a good objective as well. Because it's very difficult to do things individually that make a difference in the scheme of things, it's also useful to work in larger groups. In this case, you can do it by joining organizations. There's plenty of them around. But a lot of those things involve getting active, writing letters to the editor, or we say LTEs, speaking in public, going and showing up. Just showing up, speaking, has a big impact at public meetings. Reviewing important documents. The most important documents coming out now, City of Ventura's should be emerging here shortly, are called CAPS or CARPS. Climate action plans are climate action and resilience plans. And these are the plans that are going to guide actions by those decision makers, city council members, and advisory bodies like planning commissions into doing things that are going to be cleaning up the environment, reducing greenhouse gases. But unless those plans are done properly, it'll be more of the same, too much inaction. You can write legislators, call them, pester them. This all is going to be needed and important. One thing I did find more along the lines of just personal actions was very gratifying was just getting a stick with the clippers, clamps on them, picking up trash. If every place to do it is the Rincon, there's lots of material up there, and you get the ocean the whole time you're there. And surprisingly, people drive by, give you thumbs up, or are you with the Park Service or are you volunteering? Oh, you're volunteering. They really pat you on the back. So if you're looking for something rewarding, the simple act, eye-hand coordination is all you need, and a long stick you don't have to keep bending over. And pick up trash someplace. You'll be rewarded, I think, personally, but also gratified by the people who thank you in many ways. Thank you.
Please remain seated as we sing verse 1 of Morning Has Broken. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word.
Good morning. Thank you so much to Jim and Celia for asking me to share a short video on how I try to incorporate environmental actions into my day-to-day life. For those who know me, I'll be a clerk at Oceanic Administration, Co-Management Fellow with the California Coastal Conservancy, which means I do a lot of work around restoring coastal ecosystems like wetlands along the California coast. So I started going to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura when I was 5 years old. I could go on for hours about the amazing ways in which UCV has helped shape my relationship with the world, but for the sake of time, today I'm going to be focusing on the 7th principle of Unitarian Universalism, which is my favorite principle, if you're allowed to have a favorite principle. Respect for the interconnected web of all existence, of which we are all a part. And I think that 7th principle is something I think about every day, and in many ways it has shaped how I personally approach environmentalism in both my personal and professional life. I think focusing on the interconnected web of all existence in the context of environmentalism really opens the door for unique action and creative ways of thinking in many different ways. So today I'm going to be focusing on 2. Firstly, often I think that being an environmentalist can get framed as needing to fit into a specific mold. The person that has the reusable straws, never forgets their reusable bags, buys all organic and local foods, uses ocean-friendly laundry detergent, composts, recycles. I mean, the list really goes on and on and on. And while all of these actions are incredible and beautiful, no one can be expected to do all of them perfectly all the time. And I also worry that this focus on individual action can create a really competitive atmosphere of who's doing the most and who's doing it best. When we bring in and integrate that seventh principle, that interconnected web, into our thinking about environmentalism, I think it can definitely add some pressure to act conscientiously as a member of a greater community, but I would hope that it also takes some pressure off because it's a reminder that we aren't doing this alone. I view it as an invitation to show up for your community in ways that highlight your strengths, in ways that lift others up, and in ways that are within your own capability within that moment. Secondly, when we think about how everything is connected, it's a reminder that everything we do impacts the world around us and those that call it home. And as humans, we already have things that we love, things that we're passionate about, things that we're good at. So I think one of the strongest and most lasting ways we can incorporate environmentalism into our daily actions is to think about how we can be more environmentally conscious in our own fields and hobbies and the things that we're already doing. So, for example, if you're an artist, that can mean finding ways that excite you to reduce your consumption and share your vision and dream for the world through your own artwork. For example, yesterday I just went to an Earth Day themed drag show where all the outfits were made from reused and recycled materials. They were absolutely gorgeous, and the performances told stories about how the performers felt their own queerness is represented in nature or how climate change is impacting them in their communities. There were people dressed up as possums and bumblebees making an impact in ways that I never could because personally I promise I'm far too clumsy to ever be able to convey that much through dance. I know people in academia who make it their mission to constantly be sharing new information about environmental injustice in their own workplaces and who volunteer their time with communities living in areas disproportionately impacted by pollutants and contaminants to support the people there that are taking action to protect their own bodies and their own families. And I know people who garden and plant healthy foods and organic foods to share with their human neighbors and plant native gardens to provide habitat and sustenance for bugs and animals and all their other non-human community members. And I'm sure that all of you will be able to think of much more creative ways to incorporate environmentalism into your passion and lives than I can, because you know yourselves and the things that you love to do far better than I ever will. But for me, as someone who has always loved getting outside and grew up lucky enough to have access to sailing and kayaking and hiking and worked as a camp counselor while I was in college, in my professional life, I try to always be really conscientious about access. Who is able to access restored wetland areas? Who feels safe in those spaces? And how can we work to make them feel more welcoming? During my personal time, since one of my past employers paid for me to get Wilderness First Responder certified, I now sometimes volunteer as a street medic using the skills that I feel lucky enough to have to provide services and safety at things like protests for climate justice or environmental justice, but also for things like reproductive justice or racial equity and LGBTQ rights. Because when we're thinking about that interconnected web, none of these things are separate from the environmental movement. Because ultimately, we can't respect nature without respecting the people and communities that are a part of it. Many societies have lived and continue to live in ways that aren't causing climate catastrophe. So thinking about that interconnected web allows us to remember that the issue isn't humanity itself. Humans are an integral part of this web. The issue is instead the ways in which we're living and the systems that those ways of living are supporting. I know there are so many people in this room who are constantly working to learn together, how to act together in ways that show compassion and care and intention for the world around us, and I feel so lucky to have UUCV as a community that I know I can be in conversation with and lean on as I continue on my lifelong journey to be an engaged member in the web of all existence of which we are all a part. So thank you, and I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your Earth Day weekend.
Well, folks, we are running quite long, so it's going to be like going to some of the other more traditional churches, I'm afraid, today. And forgive me, because I might stumble a little. I'm going to ad-lib and cut about 2 pages out of this. We have, as the charming Celia is charmingly displaying, been recognized by the city of Ventura as a green business, the first house of faith in the county to have achieved this distinction. This process began back in the time before and was a little bit stalled by the pandemic, but I got a lot of help in filling out the questionnaire from many people, many volunteers from Building and Grounds and others. A huge assist from our office manager, our church administrator, Jennifer Luce. And although, she helped me fill out an inventory, really the award goes to all of us, especially those of you saving carbon by being out there in the Zoom land, because it's all the practices that we have worked and developed and changed over the years under the auspices of our environmental action team, which is going to get started going again. And so thank you all, congratulations to you all.
Please join me in singing verse 2 of Morning Has Broken. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass.
Thank you, Jim and Celia, for inviting me to speak about what I, George Naugles, also known as Balance to Thrive, do at home to show respect for the interdependent web of all existence. Got a little art project here, and you'll see this in the screen as I go through the presentation. The meaning of this is food print. Can I hear everybody say food print? Food print. That's our food choices impact on others. Luciano, our youngest member, put his best foot forward to help paint this 5-inch plate with our Santa Clara Rivers clay. Look for this in the UUCV art show that Celia and others are helping to coordinate. Thank you, Veronica Beer. And this is here to remind us of our food print, our food choices impact on others. I greet our son each morning. I thank God for all parts of this life, and I connect with them through prayerful yoga. And then I try and succeed sometimes to burn less, grow more. Can you guys do that? No. Say burn less, grow more, burn less, grow more, burn less, grow more. See, we can do this together. And if I can do it, we all can do it. We can burn less, grow more. We can cycle, run, or walk to stores. Some of us, I recognize not everybody can do that, but there are ways to burn less. We can cook with sunshine. That's something we all can do. We can plant and pick fresh veggies that we grow at home, fruit as well. Not everybody has a yard, I recognize that, but we can do this in various ways. We can enjoy batched plant-centered meals with less meat and 1 to 4 vegetarian days per week. I know we can do it because I do it. We can sweeten we can minimize commutes. We can drink water and homegrown teas. solar power our computers and phones, burn only to earn and fertilize. Well, most of the time, I have to admit, sometimes I burn for pleasure. I like a little campfire sometimes. But if I make bone char with that or biochar with that, it helps my garden. We can turn off our gas appliances and electrify, cool with fans and tile floors. We can boil bulk carbs instead of baking energy-intensive bread. We can shop farmers markets to reduce food miles and support local ag. We can retain, treat, and infiltrate runoff, reuse and irrigate with food prep water. By the way, that's not water that was used to wash dishes. That's water that's used to clean your lettuce or other washing that didn't get touched by mouths. Fertilize with truckloads of locally sourced, OMRI certified compost instead of chemical fertilizer or bagged soil. We can burn less by learning from nomadic prophets who live frugally, like those in our Safe Sleep program, who I've learned a lot from. We can learn new skills or employ locals like Gudrun to maintain or remodel clothes, bikes, furniture, and cars. Retro can be better than new, and what would Jesus do anyway? We can compost, burn instead of using this. We can bury all kitchen waste with biochar to increase soil, organic matter, and nutrients. We can use seed-free landscape waste as mulch, retaining walls, and more. I say we can do this because I have done this. We can use branches as trellises and later either chip them or burn them for DIY fertilizer. We can allocate the social cost of carbon, which according to some is $185 per ton. And we can use that money to electrify our lives. We can grow more by restoring native plant habitat, by propagating, grafting, and maintaining trees, by planting bird and pollinator habitat, and making our own delicious homegrown yogurt with 0 sugar and 0 plastic. I know I don't do everything I can do, and I'm kind of underwhelmed with my own performance at this sometimes. So if you feel discouraged, please understand. I've been there too, and I hope we humbly seek to continue learning, achieving, and promoting quality of life improvement for us and native species. And can you please say it again? Burn less, grow more. Thank you.
Please join me in singing verse 3 of Morning Has Broken. Morning has broken, sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
And Mark, and Todd, and Maravilla for your hopeful, or almost hopeful sometimes, messages this morning. As a UUA-recognized green sanctuary and as a certified green business in the city of San Buenaventura, we as a church continually strive to leave our footprint on the land where our Chumash predecessors built and their descendants do still dwell. May our services today validate all of our own efforts and perhaps inspire more.
I invite us now to close our eyes and get comfortable in our seats as we move into a time of silent reflection. and contemplation. As we breathe in a few nice, deep breaths together, feel with gratitude the strength and support of the earth below us, without which we simply could not be. Breathe in with gratitude the oxygen that gives life to all living things on this earth. Reflect, if you like, on the choices that you have made, or perhaps intend to make, both large and small, that keep our world a healthier place. Imagine, if you will, the gratitude of the earth and all its creatures for the simplest acts of kindness that you perform, perhaps on a daily basis, to keep our environment healthy. Breathe in with gratitude, breathe out with love, together making a difference for our planet.
Please rise in body or spirit and join me in our closing hymn, For the Earth Forever Turning.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies, for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures, in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons' harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth.
Please me reading the words on the screen as we prepare to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the truth of life, but the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, those we carry into our lives until we are together again. Shortly after the benediction, those of you joining us via Zoom will see an invitation on your screen to join a breakout room for conversation in small groups. Those of you here in the sanctuary are invited for coffee and tea and bagels in the community hall, Berg Hall. Feel free to avoid the bottleneck as you enter through by going on both or either door. Also, we have chairs and a canopy set out outside for those of you who would like to go outside to enjoy this beautiful sunny Earth Day. I remind you that you are welcome to put something in the offering basket at the rear as you leave the sanctuary. And please do turn in each card. And we leave you with these words adapted from Elizabeth Tarbox. Come find me. You won't have to look hard. Come to where the ocean touches the shore. Find me in the bright light promise of morning on the waves. Look carefully at the bubbles breaking on the wet sand. There I am. Turn over the glistening rock, slippery with its cushion of seedweed. Here I am. Hear the gulls crying, the news of the endless ocean. That is my news, my voice. Lie with me in the tall green marsh grass. I am your world, your earth, your home. Care for me. May it be so.